Hi, will Chairwoman Nolan yield, please?
Will the chair yield?
Yes.
Chair yields, Mr. Graf.
Thank you. Kathy, I mean, we're not doing anything different than we're doing as far as the tests that we're giving our children right now. We're just evaluating, we're looking at evaluating the teachers differently, correct?
There are 670 plus school districts in our state, Mr. Speaker, my colleagues, and they have wide latitude as to what tests they choose. They have wide latitude, and they will have latitude here on the observation piece, how they conduct it. So there may be vendors where districts purchase tests from vendors. They may have signed 2, 3, 4, 5-year contracts. I don't know that. I believe the plans are on file on the State Education Department website, but I've not reviewed that many of them. I have certainly seen that there's a differentiation. You know, some of the large districts purchased tests, some of the smaller districts created their own tests. Every evaluation plan was discussed and approved by the State Education Department according to our earlier legislation, and I expect that that will continue to move forward, that many districts will continue to have a plan that was collectively bargained, that was reviewed by the State Education Department, and that will move forward in that way. The tests themselves change over time as curriculum changes and local control is asserted in that way. Local school boards certainly authorized moving forward those tests.
Well, Kathy, how about the state test, where we had the children sitting for the state test? This is the one that they're talking about. There's a big opt-out movement. I mean, we're not changing that in this bill. We're not changing that in this legislation.
No, I apologize. No, we're not. The gentleman's correct.
And now, throughout the last 2 years, we've heard from parents. I know my colleague and I went around the state talking to parents, talking to educators, talking to children that were taking these tests. And one of the things that came up in the test was it didn't take into account a child with a learning disability. It didn't take into account a child that was English as a second language. They're not going to take into account all of these children that came across the border by themselves that the federal government put in our school districts, and they may not even have a formal education. But yet, and the reports that we got, and I think you've got some of the reports too, is with these tests, I can have a child that is developmentally in first grade, but chronologically in fifth grade, and they want to test that child on a fifth grade level. And then we want to judge the teacher by that child's ability to take a fifth grade test when he's developmentally in first grade. We haven't changed any of that in here, have we?
I want to remind the gentleman and my colleagues, as a response to the earlier questions, the State Education Department has applied for a federal waiver for the No Child Left Behind provisions that require one test administered like that, and we share his concerns. And I should add about the test generally, if it was up to me, we probably would scrap the Pearson tests and go to a whole new system. But again, it's not up to only me or my colleague here. We have the Senate, our Senate majority. We have to work with them, the governor, the executive, and so we are so doing to get an on-time budget. But we have applied for the federal, our regions, and our state ed department have applied for that waiver, and I'm very hopeful that they will get it.
Yeah. Kathy, I understand. I mean, I talked to the senators, and the senators were fighting over GEA, and they were fighting over different physical things. And my understanding is they were sitting there and they were letting the Assembly take on the fight for education. You know, the Senate looked like we're going to let the Assembly battle this. And we're going to let the Assembly take on the role to fight for our schools and fight for our children. And then we're going to go along with whatever the Assembly and the governor does. So in this case here, I mean, the people were relying on us, relying on the Assembly to do what's right for our teachers, to do what was right for our schools, to do what was right for our children. Now, I'm sure, you know, I appreciate it because when I was in law school, I know I had to argue positions that I didn't believe in, you know, And you're doing a great job. You've been great in law school. I just want to say that. But I don't think that this bill is actually, and your opinion on it, if I'm not testing children, if I have all of these disparities with children, and these tests aren't really a reflection of the growth of these children, do you really think this is fair to the teachers to judge them on this standard?
Mr. Speaker, my colleagues, I will answer the question this way. I never became a lawyer because I always felt I could only talk about the things that I really believed in. And so I really believe in the budget process. I believe in the men and women of the New York State Assembly. And I believe that the people of our state send us here not for the perfect solution, but to do the best that we can. And so there are things in this legislation, and, we've been a little rueful about it, a little chagrined, 3 years and 3 tries and 4 years, and, we have to convince people, but I believe that we are still doing the right thing, even with flaws. I think we mitigated the proposal that the executive put out, and that our colleagues in the Senate, I might add, accepted in their one House bill. So I'm sort of surprised. It was a remarkable statement that they were trusting the Assembly to do something for education. I get involved, as I know you do, in every issue. I don't wait for the Senate to do that. But the Assembly and our one House proposal rejected all these things because we didn't think it should be 50% in testing. We didn't think there should be a 5-year probationary. We didn't think that there should be outside observations. We didn't think that the local test should be completely eliminated. So we fought back, I guess more alone than I realized, since the Senate was leaving it up to us. We fought back, and we won significant concessions from the Senate majority and the governor. And so one of them, by the way, is on renewal schools, where we have many children who are special ed. They will be receiving additional funding. So there are things that we did to mitigate this. Are there questions and concerns? Absolutely. But I do feel today that I can put this bill in conjunction with Mr. Farrell and our Speaker, Mr. Hastie, and all the members on both sides of the aisle in front of the members, because we're here to do the work, get a budget done. The perfect cannot be the enemy of the good. We keep moving forward, and we do the best we can. And that's my answer to the gentleman's question, but I thank him for his care and concern and his compliment.
Good. Let me see if I could change your mind here a little bit.
It's a good thing you went to law school.
One of the problems here that I'm looking at is for the underachieving schools, okay, that they try to define. And I've talked to people in education, and they're targeting certain schools, and there's certain schools in my area. But what they're not taking in consideration is outside factors. So, for instance, you can look at the 7 best schools on Long Island, and then you take a look at the underachieving schools that they're talking about. And one of the things we're not comparing, we're comparing apples to rocks, okay? In that if you take the top schools, I want to know how many children are getting free lunch where there's economic problems at home. How many children have disabilities compared to between the two types of schools? How many children are English as a second language? There are a lot of social factors that no matter what the teachers are doing, all right, the results aren't going to be the same, no matter how many tests they give. And we're not dealing with those social factors, but we're actually judging them on those social factors. And in this case here, if you look at these schools, we're going to put a special monitor in there or somebody to take over the school. Can this person go in there and just fire everybody in the school if they want to?
No.
You sure?
Yes.
Okay, I would suggest you take another look at the bill.
I will.
Would this person have the option to raise the taxes or raise the amount of money they raise on his own?
No.
Again, I'd ask that you take another look at the bill.
I do want to point out to the gentleman, and I feel this was a victory for the Assembly majority, we pushed back hard on these renewal schools. I will never call them failing schools. It is indeed, perhaps my colleague is correct, the adults who have failed the children. The children have not failed. We've had a vehement disagreement with the executive on this. The one thing I will say very publicly, I'm deeply, deeply upset, frankly, that we were not able to get that language out of the actual text of the budget. No child fails. Adults around the child may fail, but our children don't fail. They need our support and, yes, our love and, yes, an adequate amount of funding. We pushed back a year on this proposal. No school will be put in receivership. They have a year to work with the local districts, and I might add an additional $75 million. The governor and the Senate only recommended $8 million. The Democratic Assemblyman, I never say that word, our majority recommended and was successful in putting out $75 million. And I feel that that is an adequate, certainly a start in the kind of funding those schools need to be community schools. And many of our colleagues have advocated for that, and I feel that that was a victory. But I agree with you. I will read the section carefully because it should never have called the schools failing schools.
Okay. And now, Kathy, the tenure part of it, what happens is they have to have, is it 3 consecutive years of being an effective teacher? And
it doesn't have to be consecutive, but if the final year of the 4 is ineffective, they're extended for another year.
They can be extended for a year.
Yes, they must be, I believe, right?
No, I don't think they must be.
Yeah, but if people say we're rated developing, ineffective, they get a 5th bite at the apple, so to speak, for the tenure.
Well, that's up to the school district, isn't it?
I'm sorry? Right, the school district, when it reviews its plans with the regions, but I would expect quite a lot of unhappy people if someone is rated developing 3 times or effective, and then their final year is ineffective, and they're not given an opportunity for the 5th year. I would imagine we could be back here next year on that very issue. But we're still optimistic that the local districts with the regions will make sure that something like that, which, yes, I would agree would not be correct,
right,
will not happen. You know what? I certainly do not want to see any teacher in any way penalized. We're working here with the executive, with our colleagues in the Senate, to get an on-time budget, to put $1.6 billion into education. I know Mr. Farrell will talk about those numbers later. He gets the good stuff. He gets to say the good stuff. But, you know, to answer the gentleman's concerns, I will go back and read the section, but we think that there's some opportunity there for that.
Now, you know, if we just extended the contract with Pearson, didn't the comptroller just authorize another $2 million payment?
They may have, and I'm sure the gentleman is more up on it than I'm not aware of that. I have not looked at it.
I just looked. They've done such a horrible job up to now. I don't know why would we want to give them more money.
We're in complete agreement on that score.
Well, thank you, Kathy. On the bill, please.
On the bill, Mr. Graf.
You know, I've been out there. I've been talking to parents. I've been talking to educators. I've been sitting there and watching children as they're suffering through what this state has been doing to education. And, you know, the path to hell is paved with good intentions. And where we're going down the wrong path right now. We're hurting our children. We're hurting our schools. I mean, the governor's proposal here isn't making things better. It's making things worse. And unfortunately, in the end, the teachers are going to be forced to teach to a test. The governor's going to get his way again as far as putting in his education policies. And I just think this is a very sad day in the state of New York. You know, my heart goes out to the chairwoman because she has to actually defend this nonsense, you know. But we're going down the wrong road. I would ask my colleagues to, look, let the governor's budget be late. Stand up to him. Vote no on this portion of the budget. Tell us, Governor, look, we're not going to let you hurt these children. We're not going to let you disrupt our schools. We're not going to let you destroy our educational system. This is the time to stand up and push back. This is the time to vote no on this budget proposal. You know, year after year, we tell parents and we tell teachers, don't worry, we have your back. Don't worry, we're going to make it better. This is it, folks. This is your chance. This is your opportunity to tell the governor You've gone one step too far. We're taking back our schools. We're going to protect our children, and these tests have got to go away. I would encourage all of my colleagues to send a strong message to the governor and vote no on this legislation.